Consciousness was never created. IT was always here, before any thought arises, before any memory forms, before any identity takes shape. There is something already present, a silent awareness that does not announce itself, that does not demand attention, yet remains constant. Beneath every experience you have ever had, you may have never questioned it because it feels so close, so obvious, that the mind overlooks it. And yet, this awareness may be the most fundamental aspect of reality itself. Not something produced by the brain, not something owned by the individual, but something that was never created because it was always here. Modern society teaches us that consciousness is a byproduct of matter, an accidental result of complex neural activity inside the brain. According to this view, awareness emerges when matter reaches a certain level of organization and disappears when the body stops functioning. But this explanation, while convenient, leaves a crucial question unanswered. How can something non-physical, subjective, and timeless arise from something purely physical and measurable? Science can describe brain activity, but it cannot locate the experiencer itself. Quantum physics complicates this assumption even further. At the most fundamental level, matter is not solid, stable, or independent. Particles exist as probabilities rather than objects. They do not occupy definite positions until interaction occurs. Reality, at its core, is not made of things, but of relationships and potential. This challenges the idea that consciousness could simply emerge from matter, because matter itself is no longer what we once believed it to be. One of the most unsettling discoveries of quantum science is that observation is not passive. When a system is observed, its behavior changes. The act of measurement collapses a range of possibilities into a single outcome. This phenomenon, known as the observer effect, suggests that awareness plays a role in shaping reality. Not symbolically, not metaphorically, but physically. The universe does not fully reveal itself until it is observed. This raises a question that physics alone cannot answer. What is the nature of the observer? Instruments can measure particles, but instruments themselves are ultimately interpreted by consciousness. Data has no meaning without awareness. Equations describe patterns, but they do not experience them. Somewhere beyond mathematics, there is a knowing presence that makes all observation possible. And without it, the universe would remain an unexperienced potential. Ancient spiritual traditions reached this insight long before laboratories existed. They did not arrive at it through equations, but through direct inner observation. Mystics across cultures discovered that when attention is turned inward, beyond thoughts and sensations, what remains is not emptiness, but awareness itself. An awareness without form, without boundary, without beginning or end. They concluded that consciousness is not inside the body, body appears within consciousness. If this is true, then the sense of being a separate individual begins to unravel. The identity you call me is composed of memories, beliefs, emotions, and perceptions that constantly change. You can observe these changes. You can remember being a different person years ago, and yet something remained the same through all those changes. The awareness that noticed them, that awareness did not age. It did not improve or decline. It simply watched. The brain, from this perspective, is not the source of consciousness, but a filter, a biological interface through which awareness experiences the physical world. Just as a radio does not create music but receives it, the brain may tune consciousness into a localized experience. When the radio breaks, the signal does not disappear. Only the reception does. This idea is not proven, but it aligns with both quantum insights and spiritual understanding. The quantum field further supports this view. What appears to be empty space is actually a vast sea of energy, constantly fluctuating with virtual particles appearing and disappearing. Everything that exists emerges from this field and returns to it. Your body, your thoughts, and even your sense of self are temporary patterns within a deeper, formless reality. Nothing is truly separate. Everything is connected at a level beyond perception. Time, which dominates human experience, may also be an illusion created by perception. At the quantum level, the equations of physics do not require a flowing timeline. Past, present, and future coexist mathematically, spiritually. This insight has always been central. The present moment is not a slice of time. It is the only place where reality is ever experienced. The mind travels through time. Awareness does not. Most suffering arises from identification with thoughts about time. Regret anchors consciousness in the past. Fear projects it into the future. Rarely do we suffer because of what is happening now. When attention returns fully to the present, a natural stillness emerges. Not because problems vanish, but because awareness stops resisting reality. Acceptance is not weakness, it is alignment with what already is. The ego, often misunderstood as something that must be destroyed, is simply a functional identity. It allows navigation through society, language, and relationships. Problems arise only when it is mistaken for what you truly are. When identity collapses entirely into the ego, fear becomes constant, because the ego is always threatened. But when awareness recognizes itself as prior to identity, fear loosens its grip. In quantum physics, uncertainty is fundamental. Particles do not have precise values until measured. This uncertainty is not a flaw in measurement. It is built into reality itself. Spiritually, uncertainty plays a similar role. Letting go of the need for certainty opens the door to deeper understanding. Truth is not always something that can be held. Sometimes it must be allowed. The idea that consciousness participates in reality does not mean that personal desire controls the universe. It means something subtler and more profound. Your internal state shapes how reality is perceived, interpreted, and responded to. Change your perception, and experience changes. Not because the universe obeys you, but because you are no longer fighting it. When awareness recognizes itself, life becomes less about control and more about coherence. Decisions arise more naturally. Intuition becomes clearer, not as mystical powers, but as sensitivity to the deeper patterns of existence. You begin to feel when something is aligned or not because of belief, but because resistance dissolves. This recognition often comes quietly, not through dramatic experiences, but through subtle shifts. A moment of stillness, a pause between thoughts, a realization that you are watching the mind rather than being trapped inside it. These moments may seem insignificant, but they carry profound implications. They reveal that awareness is always present, even when unnoticed. Universe seen through this lens is not a collection of objects, but a continuous unfolding process. Forms arise, interact, and dissolve. Consciousness remains. You are not witnessing this process from the outside. You are a part of it. The universe is experiencing itself through you, just as it does through every living being. This understanding does not remove pain, loss, or difficulty from life, but it changes the context in which they occur. Suffering becomes part of a larger movement rather than a personal failure. Meaning is no longer something to be achieved in the future. It is something revealed in presence. Silence becomes valuable, not as absence of sound, but as absence of inner noise. In silence, awareness recognizes itself without distraction. This is why meditation exists in so many traditions, not to create something new, but to remove what obscures what is already here. From this perspective, awakening is not an event. It is a gradual remembering, a soft return to what was never lost. There is nothing to add, nothing to improve, nothing to fix at the deepest level. Life continues. Personality remains, but identification loosens. Science may one day develop a language capable of describing consciousness without reducing it to matter, or it may discover that consciousness cannot be objectified at all. Either way, the mystery remains, and perhaps that is not a problem to solve, but a truth to live with. The search for meaning often assumes that meaning is somewhere else in achievements, relationships, or future understanding. But meaning may simply be presence recognized. When awareness knows itself, Life no longer feels empty, even in simplicity. This is not a belief system. It does not require faith. It requires observation, direct experience, looking at what is here before thought labels it. Anyone can do this. No authority is needed. No doctrine required. The greatest shift happens when you realize that you are not here to become something else. You are here to experience what already is, consciously, not to escape humanity, but to inhabit it without confusion about identity. The universe is not indifferent. It is intimate. Every experience you have ever had occurred within awareness, and that awareness has never been absent. Not for a single moment of your life. You are not a fragment lost in a vast cosmos. You are a localized expression of something infinite, temporary in form, but not in essence, changing in appearance, but not in being. When this is seen clearly, even briefly, fear softens. The need to prove, defend, or become dissolves. Life continues, but with less resistance, with more openness. Perhaps the deepest truth is not something dramatic or complex, but something extraordinarily simple. Awareness is here. It has always been here, and it will remain when everything else changes. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be believed. Simply notice what is noticing. That alone is enough to begin the shift. And when the mind grows quiet, when effort relaxes, when attention turns inward without expectation, you may discover that what you have been seeking was never distant. It was closer than breath, closer than thought. It was the one reading these words all along. Stay focused, stay consistent, stay within